Hey guys, welcome to the FightFit Podcast. We've got Brian Amatruda on the show today. Best promoter in Australia at the moment, Brian.
I wouldn't go that far.
Honoured to have you on the show.
Okay.
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm great. Just finished the show on Friday night, which was pretty good fights, and we're looking for the next show now.
Yeah. What do you got in mind?
Next show.
Anything that you can divulge?
Well, we've got Zach Dunn on next show. He's rated number 4 in the world.
Yep.
I got Willis Mean. I think he's probably our best prospect in Australia, heavyweight at the moment.
Tell us about him.
Well, ex-rugby league player. I suppose he sort of mucked up at a young age. One of those guys that probably fame came a bit too quick. But, you know, he's 135 kilos, 6'7". He knocks everybody out every fight.
135 kilos and 6'7".
And athletic, fast. He's a great prospect, and he fought Friday night as well. And first time he's gone distance in a fight, normally knocks him out at 1 or 2. So, look, there's big things with him. The heavyweight scene's exciting, and I think he's a great prospect. So that's something that we're happy to be working with Willis, happy to work with Zach Dunn. I think Zach will get a shot very soon, and guys like Kane Watts are very close to getting. We're in negotiations now with a big fight for him.
That's awesome.
Overseas.
One of the ones. Sorry, go on.
Taylor Harris is on the show.
Yep.
She's going to fight for the Australian title. I've done quite a few. I think all of Taylor's in Victoria, and
that's an unbelievable one, Taylor Harris, because she's obviously coming from an AFLW background. She's been training boxing a few years now, hasn't she?
She's getting better and better. She never even had an amateur fight, so she's a work in progress. She's working out with. She worked at Jerry Murphy. Now she's with the Alice Gym out there working training there, and she's trained by a mate of mine in Queensland, Shaggy, who's her manager, and she's going leaps and bounds. She's actually becoming a fighter, and it takes a while to transition from another sport. But I think that I think this time next year, I can confidently say Taylor Harris will fight for a world title in 1 year.
Wow.
It's guaranteed.
That's an incredible ride. Is she going to still be doing AFLW, or is she just hanging up the boots?
She's got exemption on her football to be able to do it. So I think her last fight this year will be end of November. She'll do the footy season, and then she'll come back and have some fights, and she'll run through after the season. She'll run some quick fights, and I think August next year is where we're targeting for her. And I think she's number 7 in the world at the moment. I think we'll get her down over the next 6 months in the top 3, and then we'll lobby for a shot for her.
Wow, what an awesome athlete she is. And do you know her personally very well?
Yeah, she's a great girl. I mean, one of those girls. She actually rang me the other day and said, I've now worked out it's okay to hurt someone. She goes, I didn't want to hurt anybody. And I'm Taylor's, if she sees this, she might be embarrassed. But she said, I didn't like to hit anybody, even she's a boxer. She goes, but now I understand I have to knock people out or they're going to knock me out. And she had her first knockout the other night. And she's just a wonderful person. That's why, she's probably the highest profile female in Australia.
I'd say so, definitely.
She's...
And particularly how well she handled herself in that scandal recently. Great role model for young girls.
Yeah,
as well.
she's got a lot of support from everywhere, and I think that's why I'm saying is, with her, with the footy club behind her, we're an AFL town, and I think she's probably one of those ones that people embrace and go and see her, because boxing is not about being the best; it's about being the most marketable. And if you're a marketable person, and particularly AFL, you go a long way. And I promoted Anthony Mundine as well, and it's that. People love that football, whether it be rugby or whatever, and they like that thing. That's why I think Willis has got a massive following as well, coming out of rugby league background.
Yeah, has he already got quite a big following from his rugby days and translated into this?
And his father fought for a world title, and he's an ex-heavyweight boxer.
Wow. Very
well known. It's almost boxing royalty. So, look, I think he's a good prospect, and it's early days yet. He's had 9 fights for 9 wins. You don't really hit your straps till you get around that 14, 15 fights, you start going. The first 10s, I always say to everybody, it's a bit of a blur for you, but concentrate after that, and you get the fights you can, and then you step them up from this here on in. So not too early, but look, it'll be interesting where he ends up.
It must have been interesting to promote Anthony Mundine, because he's such a colourful character, obviously. And
well, I go to Anthony, he's probably the nicest person in the sport. Whatever you see and people say this, they don't believe it, but whatever you see on camera is completely different than the person himself. He's the most kind, gentle man you'll ever meet. Like, he'll stay around he'll sign autographs for hours after. where a lot of high-profile fighters, they won't sign anything. They don't want to talk to the fans. I've been out with him many times socially, and he talks to everybody. He takes the time for a photo. He's just and he helps his community a lot. People see one side of it, and my experience with him is a couple of times I've said to him, Chock, we want to make some controversy, say something, do something, and he's, no, I don't want to do that. He mellowed near the end of his career. I mean, he obviously with the Horn fight, there was a little bit of bad blood he pushed that back out there for the sport, but he's just a wonderful human being. I mean, I can
actually second that, because I don't know him personally, but I met him on New Year's Eve because I was at a party in St Kilda and he was there, and I was like, obviously being a big fan of boxing, I was kind of fangirling and toing froing about whether I should go and say hi or not, and I eventually went and said g'day, and he was really nice to me, had a little chat to me and stuff, and
talks to everybody. He's just a wonderful man. I mean, he gets such a bad rap than people, but that's what he built his career on, being the bad guy. And then
he had a lot of controversies and
look, he said he says what he believes, and sometimes it probably doesn't come across the way it does, but the way it is now, what comes across with you can't say anything. I mean, from where obviously older than you, but from our days, what we could say those days to now, I mean, people get thrown off the radio for saying something minor that would have been an everyday conversation.
Yeah, I think it is. Obviously, in the UFC, there's that whole culture of selling your fights by talking smack and having a bit of bad blood and stuff is there. But back in the day, would you say that there was a lot of like really more vulgar sort of?
Well, I'm saying in general, like it's. I mean, you'd walk past years ago, you have a building site and the guys would be hanging off the building, whistling at the girl.
Yeah.
They do it now. They ring the building site, they get sacked.
Yeah.
The political correctness is. I'm sure there's some positives for it, but it's, geez, like on the weekend they wouldn't allow ring girls.
I saw
at the
that.
Jeff Horn fight. I mean,
it was a bit strange.
If you've got a male and a female, I mean, isn't it the other way around? Isn't it the male's getting victimised? The female, by not being able to do it, is worse than doing it. I mean, they've got dresses on, they're not bikinis, they walk around. I don't see.
It's kind of a tradition as well. So to see something like that,
it's all around the world. And here you got this little counsellor from Bendigo who wants to be a do-gooder and says, I don't want a ring girl. And of course, I think they paid something for the fight or something. I'm not sure, but so of course they buckled. But I could tell you, if it was my show, there'd be ring girls.
I think maybe they should just stick to their own sort of fields, and if don't mess with other sort of codes, traditions. That's what I think.
I think it's the life we're in now. It's
politically correct culture.
You can't say anything. You can't do anything. It's very similar to footballers. From what they could used to do. I mean, years ago, I'd be out with footballers. They'd be out the night before for a football match. They used to smoke cigarettes at half time. Everything's evolved now, and I'm sure there's some good points to it, but
you don't really get to see people's personalities. People become a bit robotic. I was actually just talking to Jordan De Goey on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he was saying how Dane Swan is an example of somebody who could really turn it on both ways. That he loved to party, but he was also a really good footballer, and he has that personality that people love, and that's becoming fewer and far between now, I think.
And Dane's a supporter of boxing. I mean, he came when I did Anthony Mundine at Hisense Arena with. Actually, I think he came from Kane Watts, Danny Green fight I promoted, but it was actually that fight he was there, and he's a supporter of boxing. He likes boxing, and he's a great guy. He's a really good guy.
He's a fantastic fella.
But some of them aren't allowed to express who they are. Like I said, they're robotic. They've got to stick to certain things and stick to a line. It's the way the world's changed. So,
do you think that's obviously that has infiltrated with boxing as well? But it's a bit of a shame because often in the fight game, to be a fighter, you have to maybe be a little bit crazy, and there are a lot of big personalities, a lot of crazy personalities in the sport.
Not necessarily. I mean, some of the boxers now, if you look at the great world boxers, they've had amazing amateur careers, Olympians. They've represented their country. They are elite sports people. Unfortunately, in this country, it hasn't embraced boxing. Boxing in England is almost like the soccer crowd. They get 100,000 people turn up. They're amazing events. They put on a show. Here, it's very hard to get people to go to a show. We're lucky that you've been to our shows. We sell our shows out, thank goodness, time and time. People actually don't go for the box; they go for our shows most of the time, and we're very lucky we've got that. But it's a struggle to get crowds in. They had a great night the other night in Bendigo. They had, I think, 4,000 people in the stadium and filled it. But before that, the only ones I can remember, I mean, we did obviously Mundine and we did Green, a few things like that on, we filled Hisense, but they're very few and far between big crowds in boxing. But in saying that, it rates really good on TV, but the TVs don't put it on either, the networks.
Don't you think that it's making a little bit of a resurgence, though? I think there are a few characters who people really want to watch in terms of your Tim Tszyu and your Jeff Horn. Maybe Michael Zarafa might become a more household name. I think if I had to guess, I'd say Khalid Baker will really make a name for himself soon.
Certain clips, I've done all of his fights. He's sort of Mr. Entertainment, as you know. He's certainly a personality. Yeah. It's Clib is a work in progress.
Do you mind giving a bit of context for the people who might not know his story?
Sure. Because he was charged as a 17-year-old. He was an amateur star that was going to represent Australia. He got charged with a murder that he didn't do. His co-accused admitted that he was the one that did it. They pushed someone down the stairs and they co-accused it. And Khalid got charged with it. And even though the other guy made admission that, yes, it was me, he served his 13 years, released, and he's back fighting. He's had 5 fights for 5 wins. He's the current Victorian champion, which he won on my show a couple of shows ago. He's a wonderful, natured person. He's always happy. He's always smiling.
Always very respectful of his opponents.
Very respectful, and he's trying to clear his name, and he's out there working hard to clear that name, and he's trying to get a pardon at the moment for. The law was that you can't have it changed after you had it. If the law was different now, he would have been dismissed. But you can't have someone else's evidence in your trial, and that's what the problem was. So, yeah, look, he did 13 years for something he didn't do, and he's back on trying. When I say he's a work in progress, I said to him the other day, look, you can't play AFL football, the MCG, and then not play for 13 years and come back. And you can't play at Wimbledon tennis, 13 years off and come back. So it's going to take him time. And, he's 5-0 at the moment, and I think we've got another 2 or 3 fights booked for him this year. He'll improve as he goes, and it takes a long time to come back. I mean, even a year out of football, a year out of boxing, a year out of soccer.
Let alone 13.
It takes a long time. So he's had 13 out, and I think he's going well. But our best prospects in Australia at the moment are probably someone like the Moloney brothers, two twins. One's mandatory for a world title. They're good little fighters that. It's a tough sport. There's people around the world, and unlike a team game, you're by yourself. So it's like these people do the FightFit challenge. There's just you in there. The trainer can help you as much as you can, but you're by yourself. So it's a tough sport. Yeah. And, it's very hard to go through. But
absolutely, and especially I always love to see Aussies doing well on the international scene, and it can be very difficult because, over in England, you get paid as an amateur and you can sort of have that life, whereas in Australia it's a bit more difficult to come up and have that Olympic boxing amateur experience where you make a living off it. I think,
we've had some great champions too, but times have changed. I mean, I think in the early days people fought for depression, in the depression to earn money for their families. They earned because it was a mainstream sport then. Every Monday night there was a TV ringside. Now it's a lot of people fight because they want to be faithful champions. That's the bottom line. They want to see themselves, and they won't take the hard fights. They just want to take fights and build belts and do all that. And that's one type of fighter. Other fighter want to fight the best, and it's a medium in between on how you get them through. And look, it was certainly Michael Zarafa broke out on the weekend on his fight. He beat Jeff Horn. I always thought it was Jeff sort of went from a middleweight, which is 66 kilo, from welterweight 66 kilo up to a middleweight, which was 72 kilo. So it was a big jump. There's two divisions
really
in between
bully people and throw his weight around as much.
He only fought like one round in basically 14 months. So it was always going to be a tough ask. And those that knew boxing knew that Michael had a big chance, and it showed that time off. And Michael had probably the fight of his life. He trained hard for it, and that was his moment. So I don't know whether they'll do a rematch or not, but that's something that Jeff Horn's been a credit to sport. Though he's really brought it back. He's
good character as well, good guy, humble guy, family man, and you love to see that from an Aussie fighter. But I think Zerafa, the interesting thing about him is that he's had 3 losses, I think, and they've all been on international soil.
Yes,
as well.
He went to America, Russia, and England.
So it's interesting when you look at it that way, that he's actually, like, people haven't really given him the credit, but now that he's had this win, people might take notice.
Yeah, but you've got to understand that anyone that gets a fight overseas, you're picked as an opponent. The reason you get a phone call is, hey, what happens is that they look at the ratings and they go, well, that guy there, number 14, it's some Aussie guy, right? Let's bring him over, we can beat him. They don't bring you over because you're the best. Very rarely you get number 1 and they go, look, let's fight him. If number 1, you force your way into it. But anywhere between 2 and 15, you've probably got more chance of getting a world title shot if you can't fight than you can fight.
Really?
Because you're picked as an opponent. So the idea is to, hopefully work your way in the rankings and work up those rankings, which is very hard. But one of the Moloney boys is number 1 at the moment. He's going to get a shot that way. So you get that. That's when you get bigger money and bigger opportunity. But
do you know what the circumstances of that title fight might be?
It's been mandated. It's against an Englishman, and I think they've got till next March to fight. So he did an eliminator and won. We won that in Chile, and he beat the Chilean boy over there. So he's got his opportunity, and he'll just sit and wait now, I presume, to get that shot, and he's a real chance of winning it.
Do you think that Bilal Akawai might reach the heights?
Look, he may. He hasn't fought the best opposition, and that's always a problem with when you go away. He's a talented fighter, but I'd like to see him have a few more harder opponents. But I think he'll get an opportunity. But whether he can, there's some real monsters in his division. That's the problem, and I sometimes you're in the wrong division, the wrong time. You might be in a weight class that there's all fantastic fighters. And then they move up the thing and there's no one there and you get a clear run. It just depends on that timing. And sometimes you get blocked for that reason. So at the moment, I think he's got some really good people ahead of him and it'll be hard. But, he keeps winning. If he keeps winning, he'll probably get a shot. That's the way it works.
So when you think of blokes, as you touched on before, guys who want the easy fights and want to be Facebook champions, and then blokes who want the hard fights. When you think of a bloke who's genuinely tough, wants to test himself against the very best, who comes to mind? Or a girl for that matter?
Yeah, sometimes you've got to take that away from them too, because some fighters just want to fight. They'll fight anybody, and that's not good because they'll get hurt, and you can only have so many hard wars. So sometimes you've got to manage them. But guy that'll fight anyone... let me ever think. Probably someone like. Look, it's a hard one. There's. I'm talking about. I'm talking about for world title. I mean, domestically. Yeah. There's favourite people like. There's a guy, Anthony Buttigieg, who won the Commonwealth title. He was just a big, good, tough fighter. He had an eye injury. But he was one of those ones that would fight anyone.
Do you think this plays into the whole heavyweight world championship sort of thing that's going on at the moment, where you can't get a match between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder? Well,
the money's too much money. I mean, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. So you're going to protect your investment. So it's all political. I mean, if you're a promoter, you don't want to lose your boy either. So it's.
Do you think Anthony Joshua's already maybe gone after losing?
I think he'll win the rematch. I think he would have thought Ruiz was an easy fight, as some people do. I think that Horn took Zerafa as easy too, by the way. Sometimes you can't go. I think Pacquiao took Horn as a joke. Who's this guy? School teacher from Brisbane. He shouldn't be in the same ring as me. That's what Pacquiao would be thinking, and probably didn't give it 100%. But then again, Horn gave it 110%, and that's the difference. And Horn deserved the win. He won, and it's great. So, I think Joshua will come out a different fighter.
Might be in London, that one as well.
I think it's in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, it is
December.
too, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So
that'd be an interesting one.
Yeah,
big money fight.
Strange country. Well, they got plenty of money, so
Yeah,
it all comes down to money. I mean, boxing is all about money. It's been like that, the history of it.
Do you see a difference in that in UFC, in the fact that UFC, those guys have no choice but to meet the best
UFC,
in the world?
They fight the best. You
Yeah.
know? Like, we've got 4 super middleweights here with Jade Mitchell, Zach Dunn, Rowan Murdoch, and Biel Ekwe. Now, some will fight some will fight them all, and some will fight none. Depends which one. I'm not going to say which ones, but those 4 should fight. But there's too much money involved. I mean, when you're world ranked, why would you fight? I know, like Zach Dunn, he's rated number 4, and Rowan Murdoch's rated number 2. It wouldn't be good management to fight the other 2. And if the other 2 are rated 2 and 4, it wouldn't be good management for them to fight the other 2. Now, when they don't have a rating or something and they want to move ahead, it's a fantastic fight. And they're fights that should happen. And I think they will happen in future. I mean, I think those... but,
strong division
we're blessed.
For Australia.
Yeah, and there's another guy, Mateo Tapia, who's just fought last week.
Fantastically.
So you got 5 there, and there's a guy called Faris Chevalier from Queensland, who's another great super middleweight. We're blessed with super middleweights, and hopefully a few of them get it on, and that's what's been happening lately. A few of these guys have been fighting, but not guys that have actually got high world ranking against the guy that hasn't got a ranking. In my opinion, it'd be silly to fight an Aussie, even though it's bragging, right? And I'm an Aussie, I'll fight an Aussie.
Do you think it'd be better to go on the international scene? And
well, no, you're better off fighting a soft opponent. Just wait for your opportunity. And when you get there, when you're in those rankings, you're going to get a call up. So,
for that big money fight, or for the world title fight, or
world title fight, world title. I mean, Jade Mitchell's had 3 world title opportunities given to him that he hasn't been able to take for various reasons, from injury or short notice. Last week, I know that Zach Dunn got offered Peter Quinlan, who beat Michael Zverev, funny enough. He got offered that fight too, but a lot of it's always short time. And I know Zach's had a couple of world title offers. Sometimes they just pick you. It's too short. You don't have a preparation, or you got something wrong with you, so it doesn't happen. But there's look, we've got a good group of fighters in Australia, but no one really outstanding.
Do you follow the amateurs much? Like of those guys who are coming up? I mean,
I don't follow. I mean, hear bits and pieces of them. We mainly do professionals, but we work with a lot of coaches that have both amateur and professional. So
you don't see anybody who you could put the spotlight on and say that person could be outstanding, whether it be a young
pro. Well,
there's
a guy called Justice Hooney. They said he's absolute superstar.
What's his name?
Justice Hooney, super heavyweight.
Okay.
They said he's the best you're ever going to get. Like, he's an absolute standout, superstar, super heavyweight.
Wow.
Undefeated. He's just he just won out of the box. That's the standout, what I'm told.
Awesome.
But look, I really do hope some of our boys that go through and win world titles, whether with me or someone else, I mean, we should embrace them and support them.
Yeah.
But boxing is a funny sport. It's one of those things where they'll make 100 phone calls to muck you up, but not one to help you. It's a very it's a very funny sport. People don't get on. Promoters don't get on. I don't get on with certain promoters. You don't get on with certain... Some people like me, some people don't like me. It's just the way it is. And I don't like people, and some people don't like another promoter. And
politics, as you said.
It's all politics, yeah. And when you get to work with someone, they go, geez, you've been great to work with. I wish I met you earlier. Just people talk about people, and but I've got some great friends in the sport too. All around the country in different promoters.
Tell us about your relationship with Paul Fifield.
Oh, Paul, I've known Paul for 30 years. Paul's a legend. I mean, he's one of the people that know. He's one of the hard men. He doesn't look like it. I mean, he's got a body. He's got a body of a 20-year-old. He's a fearless sort of bloke. He's a fitness fanatic. He's one of those guys that's one of the real hard men of Melbourne, but he's a very soft sort of person. He's soft, loving, caring sort of person.
That's absolutely correct.
I can't praise Paul enough. He's one of the nicest people I know. He's just a wonderful man.
You have a few. You still catch up and keep in touch and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I own the Melbourne Pavilion, so Paul does FightFit there, and
FightFit Challenge nights.
FightFit Challenge, yeah. So after every show, he rings me and thanks me, and that's the sort of guy he is. I said, Paul, stop ringing me. And he says, oh no, I just want to thank you for last night. Your staff were great, the venue was great. And, you know, I'm always happy to have him there. And, look, you know, I see him in a few of those things. When I don't go to all the shows there, obviously, because I try not to interfere with other promoters' shows by being there. It's their show, it's their time. But, you know, I've been to a few of Paul's, and they're fantastic nights. All those sort of challenge nights, and we do a few of them, well, we do mainly all of them, actually, they're better than the pro boxing shows because you've got two guys, they're getting in, there's no ego, they just have a crack. Yeah, and they just let them go. Yeah,
I did a FightFit challenge last year as my first fight, which was just scary as shit. Fuck, it was so much fun though.
Yeah, no,
it was unreal. You feel like a rock star.
Yeah, and that's right, and it's a great opportunity to do. And you know, you got big gloves and you got headgear, and, you know, and no one really gets hurt. I don't think I've seen too many get hurt. But it's you know, like I said, they're better nights. It's the atmosphere is better. They're not boxing people.
You get a lot of people who have invested in it in the crowd as well, like people's friends coming.
Yeah, they're all cheering and they have a good time, and they drink different. Like, you know, obviously we are in the bar, so we know what they drink, and you'll see that it's more of a nightclub crowd.
Okay.
You know, it's vodka and that sort of thing. Where boxing thing is, you know, Jack Daniels and that sort of stuff. It's a very different crowd, and
it's interesting that you can sort of differentiate that.
Oh, we do, and much more prettier girls.
Yeah,
the most beautiful girls go to these corporate shows than the boxing shows.
I'll have to be a spectator next time.
Well, yeah, like I just can't believe some of the crowd. I mean, it's a pretty crowd. You know, it's a different crowd. I'm not saying boxing people are a bad crowd, but you know, you're always going to have
beaten up heads around though.
Yeah, you will. And look, you know, when I started boxing, which is coming on about 16 years now, in shows, that's the way it was. They were in town halls, and you'd go to a town there, and there'd be a guy with a flat nose, and you'd stand in the crowd, and you'd look across, and oh, hang on, you know, some guy give you a dirty look. I did my first show, a sit-down dinner. It was unheard of, and now everyone in Australia does sit-down dinners.
Oh, so you brought that in?
100%.
Wow.
And I got criticised. They said, look, why, you know, you alienated the boxing crowd? And I said, mate, to tell you the truth, it's never going to grow, because if you're intimidated about a show and you're not environment. So what we did is, you know, I had a lot of my shows at, I did the last show ever at the Palace Theatre before it got pulled down in St Kilda. And I did a lot at Docklands at the Atlantic there. And we took it to 5-star venues. And in the end, obviously, I built my own venue, which I believe is the best boxing venue in Australia, full stop.
Melbourne Pavilion.
Full stop. I mean, it may even be the best boxing venue, intimate venue in the world, because no one's really done something like that. But we did
1,500 that feels like more.
That's right. And it's got the atmosphere. And look, people love it there. And, you know, it doesn't matter even if your show's not great. Being there is so much better. So we've had, you know, and we're very strict on the food's got to be good, the service got to be good, you know, and we give them an atmosphere where it's almost like a wedding with a boxing ring in the ring. And like I said, the days of going to these town halls and, you know, drinking a warm beer with a can of beer, you know, we're 5-star service now. You know, it's the way it is.
The food and the service is always fantastic, and when you're at the tables, you can order. I've done this quite a few times, been at those tables. I've had at least 3 or 4 times over the last year, and you can always order more food if you want, and you get more drinks brought out to you, and there's uniformed staff walking around. It's just not what you'd expect to see from.
Look, I have my staff. Even Friday night, someone come and said, "Oh, you know, table 13, yeah, they want some extra drinks in that." And I said, "Yeah, give it to them. We charge them." I said, "No, just give it to them and tell them it's from me." And that's what we do. We and look, if I'm at the show and you say, "Oh, listen, I need a knife," I'll actually go to the kitchen and bring it back to you. Or if I'm there and you say, "Look, can you get me some more?" Someone asked the other day, "Can you get me some of those donuts?" Went to the kitchen, bought a plate out. Now, those 1%ers are why we've got a full house every show. We sell more tables in one show than some people do in 3 shows combined. So it's the all 1%ers. But, you know, we make the customer a priority and make sure that we have good fights and we have good talent. I mean, you know, we have some great fighters fight for our company. It's big-time boxing. And even the guys working here, like, you know, young Jakey Ellis promotion, he's doing a great job too. You know, he's evolved. You know, he came out of the Western Suburb venues. I said, "Jake, you're not going to grow out there, mate." And I've sort of mentored him a little bit to the point that he's probably going to take over soon.
I watch him a lot, actually. He's doing fantastic. I watch all his interviews.
You know, and you know, he learns. And he's doing great shows, fantastic shows. I mean, he's he's a credit to the sport. That's the sort of show that you should be looking at. And
so you say he's a real up-and-comer in terms of...
He is, and if I do another big stadium or something, I'll probably do one with him because, he's the next generation and he's got a good team around him and, he's a good guy. He's a good guy and he puts in. So, he's got his head screwed on and then you got there are other promoters that, they're basic grubs. I'm not going to say who they are, but there's good promoters and bad promoters,
Yeah.
And but look, there's a lot of promoters coming through now. Will Tomlinson, ex-boxer, he's doing shows now. He's doing a good job.
Yep, he
great
works
production,
hard.
and he's a good guy. And there's other promoters out there that are doing a great job too. So, the sport, and obviously out of Pavilion we do the MMA, which I think
I'm actually going to a show
this Friday night.
No, it's in a few weeks' time. It's on the 4th of October. It's the Eternal MMA.
Yeah, there's a first show done with us.
Because Jack Della went to school with a lot of my mates. Went to the same school as me, but he was in the year level below. And I'm mates with his older brother as well. And those boys are coming down, and he'll be fighting for the Australian title for Eternal MMA. So
so they there's one on Friday night, which is Hex, which is an MMA show, which is probably the leading one in Australia. And then we do AFC, which is again equally as good. And then this group, as you said, they rang us up and said they wanted the book, and we didn't know who they were. There's something to do with Mushroom Records or something because we had no idea who they are. But they've booked the show, and
they've got some. They're an up and coming sort of promotion. I think they're doing all right. They've got some good fighters in there. As I said, Jack Della. Hopefully, he's a few fights off the UFC, I'd say, but I'm not really too in the know. I know that Hex and AFC are obviously the biggest ones. Jimmy Crew came out of Hex and Ben Sassoli.
I was at Pavilion like 2 months ago, and who's fighting the main event? This one, UFC.
Adesanya and Whittaker.
Oh, Whittaker. So I'm standing there, and the police came in, and the guys told me, "Oh, how's your crowd? Good?" And he says, "That's Whittaker." So I'm like, "Who's Whittaker?" He goes, "Can I get a photo?" He was in the crowd. He comes down and supports.
You didn't know who Rob Whittaker was?
Well, I didn't know. I know who he is. I didn't know. I mean, obviously, he was just standing there, and Jake Matthews goes there. It's quite a few of the boys go there, and most of our Australians go through. Like Tai Tuivasa, he fought in two of my heavyweight tournaments. He's a good friend of mine. And on the weekend, Ben Sassoli, he just went to
Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah, and he flew back on Friday for my show. And Ben's fought a lot of my shows. And he also fights in May. But it's a small community. I mean, I think we're the biggest in Australia, Victoria, for MMA, and most of these guys who go UFC do come through the Pavilion and come through that circuit of Hex, AFC, or various other ones. But
I think it's so exciting to see in MMA as well. The Aussie boys come up, and Ben Sassoli was so fucking unlucky to not get that UFC contract last week after that bloke pulled out with the sore eye.
I know, and he's. I had him on. He fought a guy called Trent Rawlings who was, went to the World Games, got a silver medalist, which is unheard of in the amateurs, and 6'6", built like a god. And I put him in the fight with Dave Hitchcock was the trainer actually, and I said, Dave, can you look after Trent in this corner? So they're in there, and Trent won every second of the fight, every second except for the last 2 seconds. Ben's in a big overhead right, knocked him out. He's got that
knockout power.
So I mean, he did not lose 1 second except for that last two, but just hit him, and that was the end of it. And but Trent's he's built his record up, and he rang me last week. Said he's got a contract with Don King now coming up. So Trent's a great guy as well, and.
So those guys are always coming down to your shows and just supporting the local fights and everything?
Yeah, look, like I said, it is a small community. I mean, like Sam Solomon, for instance, I think you know Sam.
Yeah, I know Sammy well.
Great guy. I mean, I've done all his fights from the Mundine loss, funny enough, all the way through to the world title. And he's a great friend. I did his last fight, his final fight. And, we'd had, a lot of years together, and he's a very close friend of mine. I trained in the mornings now, and I've been training with him for a year and a half. Look, he comes to all the shows. I mean, most people, it is a small community, and we I try not to charge a boxer if they come. I let them in for free. I don't like. I think they give enough to the sport that they should at least get the opportunity to come in for free. A lot of promoters don't do that, but a lot of the boxers they become your friends. Like Kane Watts who I'm going to get a big fight for. Yeah, he's probably one of my best friends, but he's a boxer. But it's not a boxer promoter type relationship. We're mates.
Well, there's some awesome people in the industry. I mean, we touched on it before the podcast that we've got a mutual friend, and one of my really good mates is Porky Lovett, and you're good mates with him as well.
I did Porky. I don't know if you went to Porky shows, but we did that at Docklands, and Porky fought Tim Bell. Like, still probably the best fight you ever seen. Porky was just and that's the thing. See, Porky stopped boxing probably 7 years.
Yep.
But he's still the same mate as when he was boxing. We still contact, we still see each other, just because they're not boxing. And I say as a boxer, boxing is a small part of your life, but we're going to be friends hopefully forever. So it's only that small window. And boxing is a bit, I don't think the average age of the AFL, I think they play for like 3 or 4 years.
That's it, average. Yeah. They could just get chewed up and spat out.
Boxing's the same. Some linger on, like Sam, goes on for 20 years, but most people are out of it within 3 or 4 years. Now, Porky, but they had that amateur career first. But Porky was a great talent. If I had got him earlier, I'm sure we would have got a world title shot with him.
Tell us about him as a fighter.
All action. He's when you say anyone fight, he would fight anyone. He's one of those guys. Didn't care who it was, I'll fight him. That's the way he was. And the harder the fight, the better. Some people, Kane Watts is like that. Kane Watts, never ever asks who am I fighting. And actually it's my responsibility to hold it back. But he would fight King Kong. Now, I'm not going to let him fight King Kong because he'd probably get hurt. But, that's he's that sort of thing. And Porky's like that too. Porky fought anyone, anywhere, couldn't care less. You say, you've got to fight, yep, let's go.
So you think that he would have won a world championship?
I do, 100%.
Say that.
100%. It's a bit easier these days.
He's got that character about him, Porky.
He had a massive following, mate. He would fill a stadium. Like
apparently, he used to get a few down at the Knox.
When we put him on, you'd sell the place out. We did one at Cranbourne. That's where he's from, and we did the racetrack probably about 9 years ago. And his wife Chanel, who wasn't his wife at the time,
still is.
No, at the time, but no, he wasn't married.
Sorry. I thought you said was his wife.
I was going to go to his wedding, but I had a show on in Echuca that day, and I always regret not going to the wedding but I did the show. It was already booked, and we did it. So that was the day he got married. But so we were ready for 10,000 people because he's a legend up there. I mean, when he used to play the footy, when he ran on, the whole crowd would jump up. So we set this day up, and it hadn't rained for like 72 years. And I checked on the weather. I said, I think we've got a bit of a problem. It was the wettest day they've ever had in February. It was in February, ever. Like, I don't think it's ever rained since then up in February. But that day we got washed out. We ended up doing the betting ring. So, 10,000 went down to 2,000, which is still a good crowd. But, Porky, that's how much support he had. I mean, he was massive. I mean, he's one of those, he's always happy, him. He's always smiling, happy.
He's always good for a laugh. Does not take himself too seriously. I mean, as you know, his father passed away a few weeks ago and got down to the funeral, and he just had all the support in the world. He got up and he made a speech, and you could tell that he was struggling to get his words out, but it ended up being so funny and so enlightening. I felt like I knew his old man so much better after.
I was at the wedding. I was at the funeral as well, obviously, and he told me afterwards. We walked out the front. He said, "Look, I practiced that speech 10 times," and said on the day when I got there, it's a whole different story. He said, I nailed it at home, but when I got there, it just didn't come out. But it came out from the heart, and that's all that matters. And
I felt like you did really well in terms of, if you're speaking at someone's funeral, it's so hard because you want to show them the depths of how much you love them and stuff, and you choke up. But yeah, you could really tell. So yeah, he's a good man, Porky. I would have loved to have seen him fight, but I'm just too young. I've only become mates with him in the last year or so, unfortunately.
Well, I can tell you, if you're friends with him, you're not going to get a better friend.
Yeah,
that's I can tell you now. He's one in a million. There's not many like him.
So how did you catch the bug, the boxing bug?
I've always followed the sport and been involved in it in some sort of way with the boxers or whatever, and the trainer. And there was a guy called Lance Costello who was a brilliant fighter, and he couldn't get fights. And the trainer became friends of mine, and my great friend was Dave Hitchcock, and it was his
I've had Dave Hitchcock on the show. We did a 2.5 hour chat.
Yeah, well, his mate was Ray Giles, who also trained people like Jeff Fennick and a few others, and he trained Lance, and we couldn't get fights. So I sort of tried to help out a little bit, and then I started doing a show with them and trying to advance Lance. And Lance had been in the sport since a young boy, like 6 or 7, and he decided at an early age he was going to retire, even though he's quite highly ranked. I think we got him about number 2 or 3 in the world. But he retired from there. He had enough. That's fair enough. And I stayed in the sport. And every time you go to get out, there's new kids coming through, and you get stuck because you give a commitment to someone, and you got that commitment to them. And I got this guy called Chris Tereveski. He's a heavyweight, and same thing. I want to see him go through, and he's with the same trainer that had Lance. And at time it's an unforgiving sport. There's not much. You do a lot of things. You spend a lot of time. There's no money in it. Right? People think there's money. There's no money in it. I could make, if I worked for a week, I could make what I make in boxing a year in 1 week in my normal job, which is property. But I do this thing. It takes up all my time. Does the least amount of money. But it's something that you do, and it's great reward. But then,
is it kind of like sorry to interrupt you, but is it kind of like the social part of it as well? Because it seems like you've got a lot of your friends around you, and you can and those events are something that you really enjoy in that sense. It's
a little bit different because I already own the venue, so whether I had it or not, it would be the same. And I used to own nightclubs. It's the same thing. You know a lot of people, and even at our venue, the Pavilion, a lot of the clientele are mine through my friends, whether it be for a wedding or whatever event we have. It's normally a contact of mine that over many years they've become friends of mine. That's where our business comes from. A lot of it, mainly through my contacts. So, I certainly know a lot of people, and I try to help those people too. So if someone wants, my girl at the office, so he says, Brian, don't come in. You keep giving things away for free because, like I said, like Paul has asked me a couple of times, can you do me favours? No, I said, no worries, Paul. That's the way you do it. So, but that's why you've got loyalty and support, and Paul's a great supporter, and most of the guys that do our venue, they're nice people, and it's but the fighters do become almost like your children, and when one leaves it, it's like your girlfriend's left you. You put so much time into them, and certainly there's no money for me. I don't take any money off any boxer. So if you're going to fight for a world title, I'm going to pay my own way there. I'm going to pay my own hotel room, and if you win, you get $1 million purse. It's all yours. It's not mine.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that fighters getting looked after, because they genuinely do put their bodies on the line, and the blood, sweat, and tears. You've got to look after them.
That's why I've got a duty to look after them. See, that's what I'm saying. But you can't have the people that want to fight. Some people just want to fight hard fights. They want to fight anyone, and some of them don't have the ability, and you can't really say that. So you've got to protect that fighter sometimes, and. Some people don't care. Like I said, there's some promoters that I'm saying they'll just throw them in and slaughter them, and it's wrong. It's wrong what they do to some of these people, and some people are very badly managed or promoted that are really good fighters that could go all the way, and sometimes it turns around. But it's one of those sports that sort of chews you up and throws you out. So it's at the moment, I have times where I enjoy it, and sometimes I think I wish I could walk away. But, we're involved. I've got a lot of fighters. We do more shows than anybody in the country, by far. And it's sort of something I'm sticking in. I'm trying to train just into that I can pass it on to people to run the shows and have a little bit less say in it. And I'm just looking at the right people for that. But, I'd say within 3 years, there'll be other people running our shows, and I'll have I have a say in it.
Like Jake Ellis.
Look, Jake's going to do his own things, but as far as my shows, we're different shows. We're different shows, and we run a different type of clientele.
So you've got your own people then.
You've got your own people
who can give you a chop out.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the right people to do the right thing, and it's like this gym at FightFit. Paul can't do the whole thing. You need people to take over.
That's why he and Bash are
so,
such a good team.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great guy. So look, I'm hoping that we'll groom those people, and my son's a promoter, but I don't think he's too keen on doing it. So that probably is not going to happen. But it's and they go in cycles. Sometimes you're on top of the tree, and then a few other shows will come on and knock you off, and it's sort of...
You have to have thick skin because, as you said, there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of stuff going on, some untoward stuff,
Yeah, they try and get in the fighters' heads. I can give you more money and do this for you and all that for you, but there's no shortcut. I mean, you either stick with the team that's with you, or jump ship and hope for the best. And I've had probably had 4 or 5 that have left me that have been great fighters, and they've all been beaten within 2 fights. So that history shows you what's there. And we've been lucky to have a lot of guys come through our cards that have gone on for world titles. And it's I think it's a transition time at the moment. But like I said, boxing around the world is growing, but not so much here. Although they are doing broadcasts here, and that's good. And I understand that a fighter wants to be on TV, but you understand that something like Fox, it draws like 7,000-8,000 people watch it. This live stream stuff's where it is. Like, you can do a show, you can do a live stream, and you might pick up 100,000 people look at it. People go, I want to be on TV. I go, don't forget about TV. People like Epicenter is where the future is.
Yep.
Where they can broadcast to 200 countries, and that's when you're getting a real view, and someone's going to pick you up. So I think that's
it's kind of like that Netflix model.
Well, what they've created now, I had a meeting last week, which is where we're going, is they've got a new thing with Netflix where you can just click on and you can have the boxing. So you can watch boxing on your Netflix, a certain channel, and you'll be able to do pay-per-view that way as well. So you'll be able to say, I want to watch...
There needs to be a medium. So
at the moment, it's Main Event. Fox does a monopoly. But that's changing, and that will happen. I know IBM have worked with Epicenter, and that's going to change over the next... it's still new because you can understand the demographics of the boxing people. You've still got a lot of old people in boxing, and they don't know how to use a smartphone. They don't know how to use Netflix, So it's going to take the younger generation to sort of show them through. And, I honestly believe that streaming is where the future, and that's why they're doing it in America, and that's the future of the sport.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Not TV.
No doubt. You're spot on. Yeah, that's an awesome avenue for it to go down, I think. And one thing I'm interested in, I won't keep you too much longer, but one thing I'm really interested in is the fact that you introduced tables. It seems like something that's so sort of small, but to me it's a visionary sort of thing to do because it completely changes the atmosphere of a boxing show. Are there any other sort of changes or things that you've implemented?
If you come to our shows now, you'll see the production we do. We're taking another level. We do a different production now, and we do a lot of film clips. And like when the fighters come out, they have their name, the photos, and their records. And we do a lot of film clips as far as all through the night, different clips that we do about our shows. And even on Friday night, I said to there's a wonderful lady, Marty Camilleri. She does all the photographs, and I said, Marty, we've got to take this another level. You got to keep getting ahead of the opposition. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to, we did the food, and we try to take up another level all the time. And look, I sit there sometimes and go, these are really good shows. They're really good shows. And I do go to other shows sometimes, not much, because if I go to the show, I don't want it to be about me. It's about them. And so I give them respect. But some of the shows I go to, they're just terrible. The lighting's wrong, and you got to have it sort of dark. There's certain things you got to do to make a show look good. And
the attention to detail.
Yeah, I watched yesterday they had a fight at the O2 in England, Lemachenko, and I watched the entrance. And gee, that looks great. They had this thunder in it, so I recorded it. So when I go back, so let's put that in our show. And that's what I've spent a few fights in Vegas, and I did Manny Pacquiao in Macau, and we try to take some of those bits that they do, a little bit of everything, and try and package up. Because there's a promoter years ago called Tarek Solak.
Yeah.
And he did the best shows ever.
Yep.
And I always said, if you could do Tarek Solak shows in boxing, you got a winner. And no one's ever done that. But, if you do that right production, and that's... but it costs you money and time. And Jakey's getting out to a small extent because he's got a team producing stuff, and a lot of fighters now see that they're doing the film clips, and I'm talking with a couple of my fighters, Lucas Miller and Chris Terieski, about doing these film clips as well. That's what they want to do in production, and we're going to try and we want to make entertainment. We want them to go to a show and go, gee, I had a great night. Even if the fight's not 100% right, they're going to say that was a really entertaining night. You've got to shock them. It's almost like a theatre production. It's got to be, and that's where I see the changing, and also the marketing into the fights. And like Will Thomas is doing a good job with it at the moment. His marketing is very good at the moment. So, look, everybody's lifted the game. It's no longer, put a fight on, turn up, they turn up. it doesn't happen.
I'm so glad that people are doing that, because as a fan of the sport, you just want to see good shows, and you want attention to detail. You want fighters to be looked after. You want, passion and all of that sort of stuff. So it's good to see that people are, trying to take it to the next level and trying to continue improving these shows.
And we know how to match fight. I mean, I can give you fantastic fights, but sometimes they just don't want to fight. I had one on the weekend, David Drapac and Jackson King, fight of the year again. Every time he fights, Drapac is the best fight ever, all-action fighter. But, some people don't want those fights, and some people just want soft fights. Some fighters, I don't want to name fighters, but some people say, that's who I'm fighting. And you go, oh, mate, I don't even get that over the line. No, that's who I want. And they want the softest possible fight. That's just the way it is. And if you don't do it, they go elsewhere. And they're not bad ticket sellers. So you put up with a little bit to an extent. But look, we're trying to raise the standard. And as with anything, you do some fantastic shows, and sometimes they just go flat. Sometimes you have a perfect match show on paper, you turn up the night and it just doesn't work, and you go, Jesus, what happened? It's so there's no look. There is a method to it, but sometimes it doesn't translate that way. But, look, I think most of our shows are good quality shows. I don't think, there's not many. I can't remember.
I'd certainly say so. I'd say every show that
bad shows.
Every show that I've been to, especially the ones of yours and at the Melbourne Pavilion, have all been of a high quality, good fights. It keeps you entertained, keeps you engaged as well the whole time. The setup's good. There's not a bad seat in the house, I find.
No, there's no bad seats.
So another thing is that obviously FightFit and the FightFit podcast, we're really big on advocating for the positive benefits that boxing and training can have on people. Obviously, boxing does get a bad rap sometimes around Melbourne and Australia. What would you say about that, and how we can change that stigma?
Well, no, I sort of think that boxing, these fight camps they do now are almost like the F-45s now. They become the craze, and whilst your opposition is obviously 12 rounds on that, but everybody's getting into boxing, and they're springing up all around the country, all around the world. And the benefits, I mean, I've seen boxers that, like Joe Watson used to train down the gym with us, fantastic, could run all day in the football field, but he'd be in a bucket throwing up after 15 minutes, And he was actually not a bad boxer in the end, but it's a different sport, of course. And the benefits of boxing are enormous for people, and the health, and people really get into it. It's one of those team-building sports, and, the people that train, I mean, I train at 6 a.m, and I know all the people there, and we're all friends, and we all have a chat, and it's, if you're not there, they say, oh, what happened to you yesterday? It's once you start doing those classes. And
definitely a sport that keeps you accountable.
Sure. Absolutely. I was with a girl the other day, and I'm saying, come on, hit me like that, and she's looking at me like this, and she's trying, couldn't do anything, and then I went bang, the bell rang, and I walked away, and she's just gone bang, and the thing hit me straight in the chin. I was like, mate, I was talking about when the bell wasn't going, but yeah, it's you got to be on your game with it. But yeah, it's a great thing. I think it's the best sport to do, and you can lift weights and you can do all sorts of things, but this thing's got a cardio and core strength. It's an enormous sport, and I couldn't. I say to all people, and when they do start, a lot of people are. I went down to Sam Solomon's, and I've done it, most of my life, by the way. And I went there and I looked down there and I thought, oh, this looks pretty easy. And then I went the next day and I said, this is not the same class I saw yesterday. And I went to a really easy one. It is hard, but you adapt pretty quick. My sons have been doing it since they're kids, and my middle one comes with me in the mornings, and he's a great boxer, and his girlfriend comes along now, and and girls love it. Girls really love it. And
see a lot of girls on Instagram these days who are boxing and stuff like that. It's trendy.
I think it's a mainstream fitness thing now. It's no longer in the boxing gym and have a stigma, which boxing does have. I think it's accepted now. Put it that way.
Well, it doesn't really help when you have sort of controversial things happen at fights, and there was the shooting at the Melbourne Pavilion a few months ago.
Outside the pavilion, but
Yeah.
Yeah, look, those people have never been to the pavilion before. We've been running for 17 years. We never had a push and shove, basically.
That's the thing. There's never been a single fight until then.
These people turn up. We don't know who they were. They were in there. I don't even know how they got tickets. But somehow they got in there. We asked them to leave, and they did leave. And the incident happened. The two groups had been at each other for many months before. The history of it is that one burnt the house down and the other one shot the other one's house up. And it just happened they both there the same night. And out the front, he left. They were gone. And the other group went out the back way to go. And they just bumped into each other and it ignited. And that would have happened whether it be at the football, at McDonald's, at
it just
anywhere
happenstance.
They just came in together that night. And that was unfortunate because people think that's what happens, but it doesn't happen. And
obviously that makes the news, and all of the awesome, successful, friendly events don't make the news.
To the credit, the police said it was a well-run, well-organised event. That was their line. And that certainly saves them. It didn't affect our business at all. In actual fact, our business went up from it. And, we've implemented things like metal detectors now, which really should be in every venue. And it is mandatory now, even FightFit. You have to have any sport, whether it be UFC. I mean, UFC would be going through metal detectors. Every combat sport in Victoria now must have metal detectors. And I think it's a good idea because it's a safety thing. And I think that's one of the positives.
And for people who may not also attend these events regularly, it might put their mind at ease to see that it's more highly regulated as well.
Yeah, look, we had the jokes originally. They said, go to the pavilion and we get shot, like as a joke. It was sort of poor taste in a way because someone did unfortunately pass away that night, and outside obviously in the street, and that he was an innocent person that was with the group. But look, it's a very safe environment. Like I said, there's our security which would be the same security that you use, I presume. I'm pretty sure they are.
I'd imagine so.
Steve Irvine, his crew, been around a long time, well respected.
They handled it very well on the night. I did say as soon as it happened, sort of obviously there's a big sort of manic thing that goes on and everyone's like, what the hell is that? But then they locked it off. They, sealed the venue. The police were there within a minute. It was ridiculous how quickly the police came, and it was handled very well. What was going through your head at that moment when you?
Well, like I said, I was outside with them. We asked them to leave, and I walked outside, and they'd agreed to leave, and it was all nice. And I went back in the venue, and I was standing on the side of the ring, and I heard the noise, and I thought, "What's that?" And then I saw a few people duck down, even though it was outside, but you could hear it come through the doors. So I sort of stood for a minute. I was looking at it, and I thought my next thing was, "Gee, I better duck," which I did for a minute. And then I got up and said, "What am I doing?" So I went straight to the door, and I said, "What's happened?" And he said, "I was shooting." I said, "Anyone hurt?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Shut it down," which is what we did. So everyone exited through the back, as you know.
You must have been pretty nervous walking towards the door.
Didn't think of it. Actually, in fact, I went in the street, and they were still there, which was the crazy part. But I didn't actually think. I was stupid because I didn't think. But
you must have. Did you just go into sort of sort it out mode?
Well, it wasn't sort out. I mean, I'd be the first to run probably. But I mean, what happened is that I just I wanted to see what was going on for a start. It was obviously my venue. It was my night, and foolishly I went out there. But I'd already had. I was out there when they had their discussion, and they seemed, they said, "I'm sorry, we're going home," and that's what it was. So I wasn't really sure what was going on, but the police were there within 2 minutes, and we contained the crime site, and everyone left through the back, and no one really saw what was going on. And look, it's an incident that is highly regrettable, but on the positive side, it's probably, if that had happened inside, you would have had 20 people killed. Okay, and if it didn't happen there, it could have been anywhere else's show. It could have been anywhere.
Or it could have been in a public place.
Could have been. So what's happened is that the implement of safe security reasons now has made the whole sport a lot better, whether it be UFC, AFC, Hex, whatever. All these shows, Fight Fit, Tribute, they've all got metal detectors you've got to go through, and that's going to be that's probably going to save incidents. And it takes a little bit longer. We obviously open up a bit more. We search bags, we search everything, but it's good to know you go to a show and you're safe, and that's how we evolved with these tables, because it wasn't safe. Because what happened, you'd stand there and you'd say, oh, come on, hit him. And then the guy next to you is going, who are you talking about? Once you put it on a table, it's only your table talking about it. So it actually,
and it's just a more classy way to go about things as well. If you're sitting down, you've got your food, you've got your group sort of thing.
Well, it's a different mentality, isn't it? Because you're relaxed. You're sitting there and you're having a good time with your mates, and you got, the tables of 10. You normally got 10 mates with you, or 10 people that are there that you've been introduced to, and it's certainly it's a much more pleasant way of doing it.
Absolutely.
The whole of Australia does it now, and there's great promotions all through Australia, but I can pretty confidently say, because I was going to those shows, it's probably the first sit-down dinners we did, and it's something that's adopted everywhere. And like I said, we did the security measures without anyone asking us. By the way, we put in our metal detectors and changed it straight away. Then the board now have made it mandatory. So once again, it's another thing we did. They said, gee, that's a good idea what you've done, and they followed us. So like I said, we do things what we feel need to be done, not so much about expense. And some promoters will worry about the expense. We're more about we've got a meeting tomorrow night at which I don't know if you guys are going, but it's a combat sports about.
Perhaps Paul and Bash might be, but I won't.
They want to have a ambulance there. Things like that will kill it. I mean, you can't have an ambulance there. It's $2,000 to sit there. You're 2 minutes from particularly a pavilion. You're 2 minutes from a hospital. I've only had two instances where we need an ambulance. Once I had Shane Tuck, the AFL footballer. He fought on a Mundine card we had at the convention centre, and he got knocked out, and they called an ambulance that day, and there was another one at the pavilion. But in all the years of 17 years plus all the other shows, there's only probably been 2 or 3 ambulances called or needed. I mean, there's a doctor on duty for a start.
Yep.
We have a doctor. He has oxygen. He has medical equipment. And the hospital's 2 minutes away. I don't know why we would want that, but they're the sort of discussion. So at least
unnerving to have an ambulance sitting next to.
Well, it's mandatory on world title fights, and I've had to do that. But and that's another thing. With women, we've had a lot of women world champions. We've had our women excel at boxing. Our women we've had from Di Prazak and Susie Ramadan and Erin McGoran and all these girls that have been world champions. They certainly hold their own. They're leaders in the sport. Australian females are leaders in boxing.
Awesome. So, well, mate, thank you so much for coming on here. Just want to let everyone know where they can find you in terms of your social medias and promotions and that sort of stuff.
Well, my Facebook's full, which is Brian Amatruda, but I've got Big Time Boxing on Facebook, or Brian Amatruda at Instagram.
Yeah.
We try to keep everyone updated with what we're doing, particularly our shows. Our social media is predominantly about the shows, and like I said, we do more shows than anybody else. And most of the fighters you can find on our pages. And
so if you want to keep an ear to the ground with the Australian boxing scene, guys, Big Time Boxing, get on it on the social medias and follow on. Mate, thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Brian. Good on you.